Baseball is dead.
You're wrong, Cam Newton. Rest in peace.
Cam Newton, by the way, what the fuck? Like, I almost wanted to do a emergency podcast based on those comments. That was that was egregiously incorrect.
You can't.
It was egregiously uneducated.
Yes.
Andrew McCutcheon actually called him out today. He was like, this sounds like a person who has never been around baseball or talked about baseball talking about baseball.
He does. You know what's crazy? Like, shout out to Caitlin Clark. Shout out to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, because without those two, straight up, without those two, do you think Cam Newton has it in his fucking brain that the WNBA is going to surpass Major League Baseball in the next 20 years?
It's
Absolutely
really only
not.
Caitlin Clark, if we're being honest.
Well, look, I mean, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese had the back and forth from NCAA to the pros, and then
I guess, but
took off.
People only care about Caitlin Clark.
I mean, they cared about those two and the narrative that was being written for those two. The point being, that's where Cam Newton is at. Like, 2 stars in Caitlin and Angel.
Well, he has CTE, Dallas. I don't know if you understand how the disease works. Is that why really rots? Is that why he's wearing the hats? Is because the head just continues to swell? Is that why the hats go? Like, I mean, at least shout out. By the way, shout out to Cam Newton. Shout him out, because I feel like now we can add that quote to the intro of the podcast, which is great. We can just add another dumb take to the beginning of the podcast. But yeah, I was flabbergasted by that. But it's you know what? It is always the people who can't intelligently talk about baseball that feel that way about baseball. It's never someone whose opinion I trust or care about who's saying these sort of things.
No. And you can even hear, like, you know, the guys that are, like, you know, bantering with them. They're like, you know, their whole take, bring back steroids. And Cam's like, he was so afraid to touch that, so afraid to talk about that. He like sounds like
if I were to put 2 and 2 together, it sounds like he took some steroids in his life, Dallas.
Jared,
I'm just theorizing. I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. I'm reading the body language. You know, I didn't put the clip out. Actually, I did. That went viral because of me. You're welcome. Now I was just scrolling TikTok. I saw it. I was insulted. I put it out there, and then all these other shows started clipping it and put it out there. I put it out there. That was me. Take notes, T-Dog.
I saw your interaction numbers on that. Just, you know, the classic Carabas bump.
Big time.
Cam talking about baseball, like following the Corbin Burnes sighting, like he's a Rockies fan.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what, you know what it is. And I kind of like this, actually. It's always the football people that are talking shit about baseball. Is that because they feel threatened? Is that because they feel the momentum of the sport? They see the money being thrown around. They see the attendance figures going up. They see the ratings numbers are doing well. And it's like, all right, yeah, like, you know, football is king on Sundays, but maybe baseball's Mondays, catching up. They feel a little threatened and a little insecure.
I'll tell you what it is. It's not threatened from a sports standpoint, but it is a level of insecurity about the money. The money. Because they know what their ratings are. They know where the NFL stands in the pecking order of sports for a lot of Americans. And they also know how baseball players at the top of the sport and basketball players, for that matter, at the top of the sport are compensated. And the NFL players just aren't compensated at that level.
And they should be, because they risk their lives far greater than baseball players.
I'm not denigrating their contributions. I'm just laying out what the financial landscape is.
Yeah. For the multi-billion-dollar industry that football is, those players should be making a lot more than they make. But I digress. This is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to this is a breaking news emergency. I guess it was emergency. This reminded me of the Carlos Correa signing, where it was like, you know, high-profile player, random-ass team, awful hour of the night for this to break. I was asleep. I was just asleep because I was watching Squid Game.
Yeah.
I got back into Squid Game. I think we were up to episode 4 now. Right. But we banged out a couple last night, and I like she will fall asleep 5 minutes into a movie, but she's kind of into Squid Game, so I didn't want to push it. We got 2 episodes in, and I was like, I feel like this is a good place to put the bookmark in. I was like, I don't think you're going to make it through a third, so let's bookmark it here. And I don't know, maybe 20 minutes later is when Corbin Burnes signed with the Arizona Diamondbacks for $210 million over 6 years with an opt-out after the second year. But you're never going to believe this. Scott Boras' client Corbin Burnes, the news was broken by none other.
What?
None other.
Come on. That's
none other.
That's ridiculous.
You're not going to believe it.
That's just ridiculous.
Than John Heyman.
I can't even believe it.
Thank you,
I can't
John.
even believe it.
I can believe it.
I believe it.
I can believe it. I do believe it because it happened. John Heyman broke the news. There's no direct like correlation between him and Scott Boras. There's nothing like that. And I can't even believe that people would insinuate or accuse such behavior. But Corbin Burnes gets 6 years and $210 million. Of course, the opt-out is after the second year. Did I see it was 35 for the first 2 years? 35 and 35. So he'll be paid handsomely as a D-back. The first thing that I thought was, because I had heard these rumors, I didn't want to put it out there as like a report or a nug for the BID listeners because I didn't know how much I trusted it. But the idea was that if he were to sign with an East Coast team, it was about a $100 million premium. He really wanted to sign with a West Coast team, and he gets the 210 over 6. So Toronto Blue Jays fans, I know you really want a living, breathing human being player to sign with your team. It would have cost you around $300 million to do that. I don't know what other East Coast teams were really hopeful for Burnes. I feel like once the Red Sox traded for Crochet and signed Walker Buehler, that the enthusiasm for Burnes had kind of simmered. I think when you look at the Yankees adding Max Fried, I don't know that he was really an option there. The Orioles, a reunion there. Never heard any smoke. There's not really any smoke with Baltimore for any free agent, which is odd with the new ownership. But it just felt like it was always going to be West Coast. And if you were an East Coast team that really wanted this guy, the number was going to start with a 3, not a 2. So he goes to the Diamondbacks. I love the move for Arizona. We're going to have plenty of reaction on the positive side of things for the D-backs because this was a team that was in the World Series a couple of years ago, and they play in the same division as the team that was somehow able to hack the settings on the game and turn it on easy. And that's no small feat when you're operating with their budget in the same division. But yeah, what were your thoughts?
Initially, the initial reaction was, all right, sweet. They're going to be that much more competitive for a wild card spot because the division is spearheaded by who it's spearheaded by. Mm-hmm. But then I think you have to consider a lot of the things that I know I was kind of laying out last night as this news broke. I know Jay Hay was looking at it from a similar angle as well. Initially on the surface, there's a lot to be excited about because I think of how you sort of project what this team has shown you over the last couple of years, and that's the ability to bounce back. You had an offense who, when they made it to the World Series, struggled mightily, below average, essentially across the board offensively. And they had 2 really strong performances on the mound from guys like Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. And when you step back and you think, all right, they had those kind of performances and they did not have the support of an offense, and look where that got them. Torey Lovullo was still able to get them to the big dance, to the big show. So then you fast forward to the next season and you don't have the health of some guys, and mainly Corbin Carroll and the offensive struggles that he experienced. But then you look up and you have an offense that scored more runs than anybody in baseball. And you start to see what that offensive picture looks like. You've got Carroll and Marte, who are MVP caliber players, penciled into this lineup. And now you move your eyes to the rotation and you have some things that you like, some things that you're excited about. You've got Eduardo Rodriguez, who knows what that's going to look like, but hey, that's experience, that's veteran presence. And you just think about penciling in a guy.
Forgot he was on the team, by the way.
Completely. People have completely forgotten that. And that's okay. But think about what that dude could potentially provide you if he doesn't have the responsibility of being the 1, the 2, right? He can settle into being a 3, 4, a back end guy. That's okay. But I think Jay Hay will start to point out while you're excited about what Corbin Burnes represents and the veteran presence, I mean, we're talking about a guy who since 2020, I mentioned where he's finished top 5 Cy Young, won the Cy Young, or excuse me, top 10 in those years since 2020, won the damn thing. But you look at some of the other statistics, some of the rate stats, and there's some things to be concerned about, frankly, because what made Corbin Burnes sexy early on and during that run are some things that you might be paying attention to and going, well, if this is the trend, how's that going to bear out? So initially, the reaction, excited about what the Diamondbacks are committing to, excited to think that Corbin Carroll sees the picture that they're painting for him. Ultimately, it felt like this is still just a team that is tooling up to make a really good run and really put their stamp on a wild card spot.
Not to like shit on anything you just said, but I think what Corbin Burnes saw was, I just had twins. I live in Arizona. The Arizona Diamondbacks got to 200 million, and the tax benefits are awesome. I think that's what he saw. And it's not like he's landing on a bad team, and it's not that that's a bad way to look at it. But I think more so now than ever, like I think it just used to be, players wanted to go where A, the money was, and B, the team that had the best chance to win the World Series. Now I feel like guys are like, sure, I'm not going to get taxed out my ass if I go here, and I live here in the off season, and there's just a lot more human factors that are being considered nowadays than ever before, it feels.
So off of that, how many teams that would you consider better World Series contenders than the Arizona Diamondbacks were offering this caliber of money or in this ballpark for Corbin Burnes?
Well, I think it was super silent. The market was silent. Like
that's why I asked in part because I didn't know if you had heard teams that I didn't hear. So I don't.
No.
In a lot of times he wasn't necessarily spurning the Dodgers or the Yankees or the Phillies, just to name 3, to go to the Diamondbacks. He was maybe spurning a team that had a marginally better chance at going to the World Series. I think the Diamondbacks have to be considered serious World Series contenders with the massive caveat that they play in the same division as the Dodgers, which is a huge part of this conversation. My initial reaction when I saw it at 3:00 this morning was history repeats itself. This felt like the Zach Greinke contract all over again. And I was, we're all old enough to remember when that deal happened. And I think it had a little bit of the similar sense of, wow, the DBacks, huh? Like I know you laid out why Corbin Burnes location wise would choose the DBacks, comfort, familiarity, family, all of that sort of stuff. But the DBacks outside of these 2 contracts, the Greinke and the Burnes contract, really have never been in this sort of spending business before. And in fact, they've been more in the, we're going to manage our payroll carefully and cost cut in the right sort of scenarios than they have been in this. They're one of 4 teams ever to now issue multiple $200 million contracts to pitchers. This includes the opt-out after the second year, which I think is interesting, coupled with the full no trade clause. I mean, from the positive end, I think you have to start with this puts the Diamondbacks on the very short list for the best rotations in Major League Baseball. Sure. Not in the division, not in the NL. They are competing with the Dodgers for this distinction, but across the board, that front 3 with the depth that Dallas outlined with Rodriguez and Fott and all of those guys, like that is absolutely devastating, even while acknowledging that there are some underlying, kind of trend concerns with Burnes.
And it's okay to think that this move is completely motivated by financial comfort and by logistical comfort. Sure. If that's the case, then isn't this a picture perfect scenario?
Yes.
Isn't this a picture perfect scenario? Yes. So it's not about, so that's why I say, look, I get the idea of comfort, but brother, if you're telling me that you're presenting me with a package that has me staying at home, being comfortable, and also a top 5 team when we're talking about getting into the postseason from the National League, then then yes, 1,000 times yes. This is where I'd like to be. I do believe, I think more and more, simply because of the opt-outs and the prevalence of those those tools in contracts today, the extensions or the length of the contracts today. And I think teams' willingness, if you're competitive, to either eat money or ship guys out, if they're competitive, guys are willing to say, give me the money now, because there might be a chance that where I end up during the life of this contract is a place that is competitive and is a place that gives me the opportunity to win the ring, which I'm after. So if early on it's a financially motivated decision, that's fine. But if the big picture tells them, I've got a good chance to win here, and if it doesn't work out here, there's a solid chance I could be somewhere that's competitive, why wouldn't I make this decision?
I think it's also in other examples, right, where, say, Xander Bogaerts, for example, he wanted to be in Boston. The Red Sox were getting a deal done, and then the Padres just doubled it. And then he was like, well, fuck, I got to take this money, and I don't necessarily want to be here, but there is a chance to win. How could I possibly say no to this money? I think with Corbin Burnes, and I'm guessing here to an extent, but it didn't feel like he wanted to sign with a specific team, and he was like, well, fuck, how can I turn down this DBacks money? I think it was more just like, I want to be on the West Coast. It'd be nice to be in Arizona. I don't know if they're going to offer me anything, but like, let's wait it out and see. And oh shit, 210 over 6 to stay at home and have a chance to pitch in the postseason. Well, absolutely, yeah, sign me up.
This is what's great about these decisions is we still have to look at this through a business perspective lens, which is, it's not just about where I can win the World Series. That might be how I want guys to view things. That might be how fans want guys to view things. But ultimately, this is still a job. And if you have suitors, whether it's Apple or whoever the hell else, right? Like Amazon, whoever, Google, they could all be suitors and they could all be vying for your services. And if where those places are located and the amenities that they're offering, if all of those things matter to you and it's not about working for the number one company in the world, then fucking so what, buddy? I'm comfortable. I got more money than I know what to do with.
Look at Corbin Burnes' career, I guess, history. He has no loyalty to any team. When he was in Milwaukee, they butted heads.
They fucked him. And that's why a player today might say, you know what? I'm fucking done with this. I've seen how the business aspect of this goes.
He's doing what's best for him, which is great. Like he obviously butted heads with Milwaukee over money. He was traded to Baltimore, had no like I don't owe you anything. This is a 1 year. You traded me here. I didn't choose to be here. And then he became a free agent and got to choose where he wanted to be. And he wanted to be home. Why not? Fuck it. And have a chance to win. What's wrong with that?
And also, like, $35 million a year. Like, I know we've sort of become numb to this idea with some of the Soto and Ohtani monies. Like, there has only been 2 pitchers prior to Corbin Burnes to get that number of dollars per year over this number of years or more. And it's Cole and Strasburg. So, like, we can go back and forth about, like, what team I think we had tossed out higher total dollar numbers at different points as the offseason went up, but clearly like he got the max freed amount of money on $2 million more on 2 fewer years. Like, this average annual value is, if not precedent setting, it is precedent reaffirming in terms of pitching contracts. Like, $35 million a year is a significant number for Corbin Burnes to get to over this number of years. So I think I think you're right psychologically on what was motivating him and stuff like that. But also, like, just to go back to the original point that I tried to make, I just don't think the number of teams that he was choosing between when he lined up Arizona from a quality standpoint, I do think he could conceivably sell himself on the idea that this team is as close or closer than any of these other teams who are offering me $200 million or more. Like, do we like Baltimore's position within their own division more and some of the young talent? Yeah. Okay, maybe. But, like, pound for pound, are the Baltimore Orioles better than the Arizona Diamondbacks entering 2025? I don't know that that's the case. Like, I really don't.
And where they're at in the wild card picture, Jay, hey, that, because ultimately that's what I think you have to consider in your landing
certainly not
spots.
The Blue Jays, right?
No.
And so, yeah, so I think this was I think it's a fascinating turn of events. I think there's like macro elements to it that fascinate me as well from like the NL West perspective, where you now have 4 teams, 3 of whom have been heavily invested in improving or maintaining their spots this offseason. Like we did previous podcasts on, the level of investment that the Giants were showing. And I think a lot of us expected, myself included, based on reading the tree leaves, that the Giants might be the team that comes home with Corbin Burnes. And instead it's a team in their own division who's now walking away following the trade of Josh Naylor. So you have 3 teams that are really, really trying to improve, or in the Dodgers case, remain the best. You have a Padres team that won 93 games last year and hasn't done much this offseason, but is already a very good team on paper. I mean, I think it's just, and then you just look at the number of insanely high upside and proven starting pitchers that reside in the NL West. And it's almost breathtaking, the quality of pitching, if you're a hitter in the NL West, that you will be facing on a night in, night out basis for the opposing starting pitcher.
Yeah, like if I'm a free agent hitter, I'm like, I don't want to fucking sign over there.
Dude, just rattle up.
Yeah. I mean, Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Snell, King, Cease, Logan Webb, now Corbin Burnes, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. And like, this doesn't even include people like Dustin May, who I know obviously some people on this podcast are huge fans of, or Gonsolin, or, Darvish, or some of these other people that are like 3 and 4 starters for their own teams. It's just, obviously it's the class of pitching as far as any single division goes, but I don't know when we've had this level of pitching spread across 4 different organizations in the same division, which is just kind of a side note, but just another fascinating part of a team that I don't know that I identified as signing Corbin Burnes, inking the best free agent pitcher this offseason.
You know who did though? You know who did pin down the D-backs as the landing spot?
Who?
Coley Mick.
He's been hot, I feel like.
He stays hot.
We should get that guy on this baseball podcast. Give him
I don't know that he does appearances on other
he's
Simpletons shows. He's got an appearance fee. You can't.
I ain't paying shit for Coley.
Yeah, you can't go direct to him.
Isn't he an internal employee? You can't have an internal employee appearance fee.
You got to talk to his representation. Like you can't even get a direct line to the guy. So I'd love to have him on. I mean, he loves talking ball.
I feel like this isn't an accurate representation. I feel like Coley retweets a lot of my content. He's a good partner. I think you're bad mouthing him for no reason. I'm
not bad. This is just how he operates. Let me see if I can. Let me see.
I mean, it doesn't have to be this podcast. They just.
No, I mean, it makes sense, right? He fucking called it. He might be changing a diaper right now. You never know. This guy's an amazing father, an amazing husband, and one of the premier baseball minds on the internet today. So he just doesn't have that kind of time. I told you. He just doesn't have the time.
That's fucked up, man.
I know.
Holy Mick.
Wow, that's how much time he has.
See, I told you. That's his fucking voicemail. Coley Mick, boop.
Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. Good for him. Good for him.
It is what it is. It is what it is. But he did actually say Corbin Burnes to the D-backs. He's like, it doesn't make sense. So that's why it makes sense.
I mean,
it makes sense now. I feel like a lot of people didn't know that Corbin Burnes lives in Arizona.
No, I mean, I'll push back on the idea. I think it makes perfect sense. I just think it was unexpected. I think those are two different things.
Sure.
Like, I think from a roster standpoint, I applaud the D-backs for making this sort of investment and trying to build on the last 2 seasons, one of which
he went to
very
them.
easily could have been in the playoffs.
Well, let's just remember how these types of things work out, okay? Because how many people had Eduardo Rodriguez going to the D-backs? How many people had Eduardo Rodriguez telling the Dodgers that he was not interested in winning a World Series? So we can understand.
I could have told you that
there are reasons, whether you know about them or not, that could absolutely prevent a player or find a player in a position that you just did not see coming.
You know what the underrated part about this is?
it looks like he sought out the D-backs. Like the D-backs were like not even like Corbin Burnes went to the D-backs and was like, "Do you guys want to sign me?" And they were like, "Oh shit, you would like to pitch for the D-backs?" Like that's how this. So Burnes was the one who approached the Diamondbacks, quote, expressing a desire to pitch in Arizona, and owner Ken Kendrick okayed the payroll bump since adding Burnes was, quote, too good of an opportunity to pass up, according to a source.
Kendrick was like, hold on. So we got a dude that I like that wants to pitch here. Yeah. Oh, well, fuck yeah, because I'm paying a guy that I don't even like
fucking
to
joke,
pitch here.
Right.
You're stealing my hate this guy.
I fucking hate this guy.
Yeah.
Get this guy out of here.
I mean, yeah, that's tough, man. Definitely fair to question Jordan Montgomery's future following this Corbin Burnes acquisition.
Yeah. That sucks for Jordan Montgomery.
I mean, does it?
Guy still gets his money, and
he's still going to get his money. So. But I mean, if the numbers weren't enough to tank your value, then like your own owner coming out being like, I fucking can't stand this dude. Get him off my team.
Still fun.
What a waste of oxygen.
I like that back and forth. I hope it continues to simmer into the season. I hope the Diamondbacks are just cruising, and Jordan Montgomery's like, can you believe what they did to me last year?
I hope he wins the Cy Young.
Well, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
That would be incredible. I mean, Corbin Burnes goes down after the big money deal with some hamstring injury. Jordan Montgomery steps in, just fucking deals.
Goes 20-3 with a 196.
But what if he goes? Well, actually, how many is this the last year of his deal?
I don't think it ever ends.
Yeah, he's locked in for life.
I think it's an actual marriage. That's why Ken Kendrick was so mad.
Yeah.
Because what if what's the life of the contract? What's he got left?
I'll tell you right now.
Because
it's a vesting option. Yeah, so he's only got it's $20 million. It was a vesting option with 10. All he had to do was make 10 starts last year, and that was it.
So what if he's dealing? Just absolutely dealing. D-backs are in a pretty good spot, and he goes crochet, and he's like, actually, you know what, dude? It's probably just going to be like 4 or 5 from here on out. It's going to be like an 85 pitch count. I would love to go further, but I would need you to express your desire to win this year and ultimately next year, which means you're going to have to pay me. So as well as I'm doing right now, this decision is totally up to you, because I will pitch every 5th day. I'm telling you that I will not pitch any farther than 85 pitches, and you'll have to figure that out after me. But sure, how do you want to play this, Ken? Huh, Mr. K? How do you want to play this? Give me that. Give me that drama.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I would love, I don't know how you would even quantify this, but just like the amount of talent in the same division, like at what point has this ever been comparable elsewhere?
I'm on it.
In history.
I'm going to get on that for Monday.
Please.
That's in line with how I was viewing it too. So
yeah. Well, Corbin Burnes off the board, which only leaves Teoscar Hernandez. He didn't get the emergency pod.
No.
But Teoscar back to the Dodgers. Shocker. The contract had deferrals as well. You won't believe it. But Teoscar Hernandez and Corbin Burnes off the board, which only leaves like Bregman, Flaherty.
Wow. It's amazing how far the polar bear has fallen.
Alonso. I was going to say him next. I mean, if I said him third as compared to second, is that really crazy?
No. Do you think Flaherty or Alonso gets more money? I would have answered Alonso for sure at the beginning of the offseason, and I'm less and less certain about that.
I think Flaherty
gets more money. Who gets more? Yep. Who gets more years?
I'm going to say Flaherty wins out on both fronts.
You know, I don't disagree with that. I feel like,
because this is Flaherty's last this is his shot, right?
Yeah,
he's not taking a 1-year deal to get back out there.
No, I think both of these deals. I think both deals will be heavily incentive laden deals with some escalators in there. And that's going to be the difference between opt-outs and escalators is, I mean, if you want to go, sure.
I think that's an Outcast album, right?
Ooh, yes, it is.
Opt-outs and escalators.
Shout out Andre.
Well, all right. If Pete Alonso goes or Alex Bregman goes, could be in the next week or so. Flaherty, I don't know any movement on that one. But
right.
I feel like the Bregman situation is gonna come to a resolution within the next week.
We'll be ready.
Oh, I'll be ready.
Well, because you're going to be fucking fired up, I think, in either direction, probably.
I've kind of given up. I've kind of given up on Breggy to the Sox.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah, I've given up on that. Yeah, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad when
transparent. Transparent.
I think it's going to be real bad because Red Sox fans went from like, we don't want this guy to like all of a sudden everyone's like, we need this guy. And so then when he inevitably signs elsewhere, it's going to be, why didn't the Red Sox do anything?
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm not I'm not saying that they're wrong. I think the Red Sox should sign Alex Bregman. Especially after, again, another offseason of them hyping up what they were going to do and falling short of that again. That would be pretty bad. So they better have something else up their sleeve. I don't want to make this a Red Sox segment, but anyways, we'll be back on Monday. Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Monday.
We'll
see you guys on Monday. Okay. Goodbye.
Wow.